Yeah. Okay. So before now, requirements pretty much we used to capture it like we do something like this, like request we can say the requirements here. I mean, that table can be longer, but these are like the essential. You can say Moscow prioritization. I forgot there was a joke about Moscow prioritization. Oh yeah, we need to do our Moscow prioritization right because nobody wants to rush here into anything. Something like that. I can't remember the joke very well. Who knows what Moscow is, what it means? Anybody? Based on the way we've written it here, the three letters that has meaning here is M, S, C, and W. So who wants to guess? M, S, C, W. What do they mean?
Must have, should have, could have, and would have.
Okay, fantastic. So that's it. So we have like this Moscow prioritization. We have like the requirements number somewhere here as well too. Let's say requirements number. Let's just say rec number, for instance. And yeah, we can just put comments, or you can have status. Let me add another column again. So I'm going to like do two different types of requirements. Guys, we are going to use more than our time today, and I think we should be ready for it. This 1.5 hours is not doing somebody. I'm sorry, man. You know, the funny thing is after these sessions on Thursdays, I feel so tired. But when the session is on, even if this session goes on for the next 4 hours, I'll be bubbling with energy. I don't know where the excitement comes from.
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline, oh. This is my own gym, I beg. Okay, so yeah, so this is pretty much how this looks like. Okay, we can put like a comment here. Yeah, different organizations they can put a spin on this, add a few more fields here and there and things like that. But this is like the very, very essential part of it. You know, another thing that you might want to add, like I said, this is like fundamental. This other one I just want to add now. Not everybody even remembers to do that, and that's one thing that will make you a special business analyst if you remember to put this in your requirements that you capture. So you can call this different name. You can call this business benefits. You can call it value, and you can also call it justification. Yeah. So you're trying to capture each requirement line by line. Why is it even important in the first place? So then when we add these requirements, one thing that's very important that we used to try to do then is that the way we number the requirements, yeah, we number requirements like this, number 100, then the next one is number 200, for instance, yeah. So under 100, so let's put 200 somewhere here, yeah. So under 100, so let's say number 100 says, let's pick an example, looking from our high level requirements, automate course registration and payment. So we are looking at it now, we can say, oh, we requested for this admission team. Yeah, so I know some of you will start thinking, oh, maybe that requester is going to be someone's name or something like that. It's always preferred, rather than say the name of the people, you can put like the team, because you will have spoken to different, or let's say stakeholder group, different stakeholder groups, so who requested for it. But if you want to add more detail to your requirements, you can put the team that requested, and you can also put the individual that requested, which is very good to have, because the importance of that is that sometimes you can capture something, then 3 weeks later, you've forgotten who told you that thing. And nobody says, no, it's not important. We don't need it. Who said it? Who said we want that? But if you put the name of the person that said that particular stuff, it's easy now to say, oh yeah, but you said this. And another thing you also want to you can also include as well too is like dates. Yeah. So you see that this list can be growing on and on like that. So you can put the date when each of those things is captured. And then you just, hey, you told me this on the 6th of September, you know, you remember where, you know, you can put all those details there. But fundamentally, most times, we have like the name of the team. that requested for it. So that's the team that, because when trying to approve your requirements or validate it, it's not going to be the same person that would validate everything. So, okay, yeah, it's fine, depending on the size of the organization. So the ones related to admissions team, the admissions manager would approve. The one related to training team, the training manager would approve, and like that. Then you can now have like one centralized business owner, or most likely called a project sponsor, who will now give like the final approval over everything. Also, you've gotten approval from the different things. Oh, okay, so let's run through. Oh, now we have about in counting them line by line. Now we have about 500 requirements now. Like, oh yeah, okay, and everything is fine. It's been reviewed. It's been approved. Okay, that's fine. All right. Is there any concerns? No concerns. Oh, there are concerns. We discuss it, and the project sponsor will be okay. Yeah, fine. Approved. But don't take your approval like that ever. Don't take your approval by word of mouth, because if it gets to a stage, it's like, yeah, I can't remember saying that. You always make sure that the approval is documented, preferably over email, you send it. So if the person, you can have that review with them, because senior people, they are not going to sit down and read through your 500 lines, So you have the conversation, you run them through your and it's okay, yeah, that's approved. It's okay, then I'll send you the email, I'll send an email for you to just confirm and say, okay, yeah, that's fine. You send the email and then the person says, okay, yeah, following from the review we had yesterday and all that, I approve, blah, blah, blah. So this is the old waterfall way. Once you've approved all those 500 list of requirements, if somebody now comes, hey, sorry, we forgot. We also need this particular thing to be in the list. Oh, sorry, that has to come as a change request, because that is now locked and passed on to the developers to start working on. So any extra request like this becomes change request, and then you have a way of keeping all those things in a different way. But that never really works, because at the end of the day, instead of people making progress with projects, we keep doing change request. Hence the agile way. But before we go to the agile way of capturing some of all these things, let's still talk a bit more detail on this example. So we can go admission team and say registration. How the pop will come here? Registration form for new, what should we call them now? Candidates, yeah? A pop will just do in my head somehow. Let me turn everything to black, so I don't be surprised again. Black. Now, what font is this? Ask for bold. Now, put everything out of bold. All right, registration for new candidates. So what is the business registration form? So let's clarify. So most times there's always rubbish English writing these things. You can have things like no, let me not use should have, so it doesn't confuse us. So we just say online registration form for new candidates. So what is the benefit here? You can just say improved customer experience, for instance, as the benefit or the justification. And then most scope prioritization. This is a must-have. So we go with concept must-have. Then what is the status for this requirement? The status of this requirement can be depending draft states, reviewed. It can be and it can be approved. So most requirements is either in a draft state, or it's been reviewed, or it's been approved. You can have that there as your status. So let's just say that this is still in draft state. So comments, if you have any comments around it based on all that, so you can add those extra information there on the comments. For instance, should have only a few questions. That's a very rubbish way to write it as a business analyst, because it's too subjective. You need to be clear what you mean. Maybe you should not have more than 10 questions, for instance. Yeah. So then there is now one very important thing. I wonder how that's, I didn't think of that initially. Who wants to guess what that thing is? Very, very important. Yeah. Who wants to complete it?
Approval.
You can see what I'm already typing. Acceptance.
User acceptance.
Acceptance criteria. So you can capture the acceptance criteria here, like, and sometimes might not be very necessary at this level, but it's also helpful to capture all this level of detail early enough. So what's your acceptance criteria? So some of these things you have as comments here, you can just be your acceptance criteria really. So comments is supposed to pretty much be like the last thing. And the reason why comments is the last thing is because it's just giving you a bit more, you paste the column now. I have to insert a blank column and then paste. Okay, that's better. Yeah, so this was capturing that. So comments here can be like follow up with manager for more details, for instance. Yeah, so acceptance criteria can now be things like 10 questions. Let me look for a more real acceptance criteria is well, if you're capturing this within your this is mostly done like on an Excel spreadsheet or something, so you can have more details. And most organizations sometimes already have a template that they work with, and if they don't have it, you kind of like have to create one yourself. Try to look for a very real way to capture the acceptance criteria, because acceptance criteria does not have to be one thing. It can be like 5 things really. So for instance, it can be include, no, those things can be your extra requirements. Can be forms can be submitted on the website. I don't know. My head is not thinking really of how to capture it properly. Yes.
I'm sorry, if you don't mind, let me just ask you a quick question. So what's the difference?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, what's the difference between this? I mean, on other acceptance criteria, they have a format whereby, they say
given that
when and
I hate that. So my personal stuff, I hate that thing.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. So I don't like it either because it's very limited.
Yeah, so I hate it. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't talk about it. So thank you very much, Basi, for raising it. So there's a particular, and when we get to Agile, we talk about, when we get to how you write a requirement in an Agile setting, we talk about that format of writing acceptance criteria. So it actually falls under a particular type of Agile framework called test-driven development. So you write your acceptance criteria in a way that it can be tested. And there is actually a tool, I think it's called Cucumber or something like that, that they use for automated testing, where you can run your test by writing the acceptance criteria with that format of giving that blah, blah, blah. So when people are using all that full framework, test-driven development, using Cucumber to be able to write the automated test, and then you write your acceptance criteria as giving that when, then that's fine. But some people just to use it and they don't even understand it, and then they are giving that and when is just very long. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Let me not jump there. We'll talk about it when we look at when we start talking about like how you work in an Agile setting. So the whole idea is like given, I'm already talking about it, so maybe I should just wrap it up. The given is telling us the circumstance. Yeah. So given that a new candidate gets onto the website to register, hold on. Given that the new candidate gets on the platform to register, yeah, when I click on the registration form, then I should be able to fill the form and submit. And if there's an extra information, you can now introduce, and I get an email notification that tells me that my registration is successful. Yeah, so that's like how you use that, given that, when, then, and if it's necessary. Yeah. So like you see now, all that story I just went, given that I'm a new person, when I want to submit a form, I should be able to fill my details and submit. I've just gone to the most important point there, which is forms can be submitted on the website. Shikina. Number 2, can now be there stated that receive email confirmation. Yeah, so that means this gives you some insight into testing. When we get to the session where we talk about testing, we talk about different types of testing and how you write test cases and test scripts and all that. We will now dig a bit deeper from this acceptance criteria, because acceptance criteria will govern all those things as well. So, but let me rush through. So as you see here, that I said when numbering your requirements, you can use like the number 100, or you can just say 10, and then you go 10, 20 as all your requirements. The reason why we do that is because you can have like sub requirements under all of this. So preferably, this is like a head level requirement, and sometimes in your work you can bold it. Then you can now go to the next one, which is 110. So 110 will be, of course, it's the same admission team requesting for it because it's under this stuff. Preferably, I was thinking of writing user story. That's why I made me do this way. This works better like this. Yeah, it works better like this. Let me see what you requested before I want to know who requested it. Sorry. Yeah, if I was doing this on Excel, we wouldn't be having all this trouble of formatting every now and then. But I'm just trying to keep every of our conversation on the same slide. So yeah, 110 now, you can now go and talk about something like, which is now a sub for the 100. So you can now go something like registration form include the following. Then you can have name. You understand how it looks as if one requirement, I'm loading one requirement. Some people will split it and say registration field name, registration field. I just feel like it's unnecessary stress. What's going to be in the form can be listed in here. But if there are now some specific field that have a bit, maybe require API integration or something like that, we can call those ones out differently as well. So you can say includes name, includes phone number, email, address, and whatever. Let's keep it short. It can be more than that, but then you can now have a form here that says something like, so let's say, under address, that's a good point. So we can now go onto our requirement number 120 and say address field should be connected to an API for automated capture of postcode, for instance. Yeah, you realize that all these things you are writing, they are still under the major item registration form. Yeah, so that thing can go on like that. So you can have 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, you know, and like that. And also one of the reasons why we give those space in between them is that in the near future, you can have an extra thing you want to put related to this. You can go to 111, you can go to 112. So you don't have to start, so that those numbers don't necessarily break. That's why we put space in between them. So when a new idea comes, you can just slot it in between 110 and 120, slot an extra information there or something. And because this is all under this, so most likely it is the same team asking for everything. But if this team was like a bigger team, and then within that bigger team, you can have subset of teams, you can decide to even put the subset under each of this. And then business benefits, you can list the business benefits under all of that. Even though the major requirement here is for customer experience, you can have another requirement that can have a different reason why you need it. For instance, let's say you capture something that says which is a very important one, for instance. So let's say on 130, we say capture marketing consents. Yeah, that one, the business benefit for that is pretty much like compliance. You need to be able to capture their consent. So is it a must-have? When something is compliance or regulation, you know, I bet that's a must-have. You know, having this address field should be connected to an API for automated capture of this thing. Like, well, we can go live without it. You can label that as a should have, for instance. Then, of course, the states can be in a draft state or reviewed or approved, or however you want to categorize the status for all of the requirements. And you can tell us what the acceptance criteria is that when one users enter postcode, you should generate a list of addresses for them, or you say enter the house number and enter the postcode, and it should automatically fill the address. You can explain that under your acceptance criteria as well. Then your comments, for instance, can be like explore, I don't know, API option. So that comment is like when you have some thoughts and you don't want to lose them, so you can just pack them there. So you can just say explore API options, comparing what's this company that does postal addresses for the UK? I wanted to say Night Post from Nigeria. Can you imagine? Royal Mail.
Royal Mail.
Yeah, so you can say explore Royal Mail API and any other API you have in mind. So like I said, that comment section is like where you pack your thoughts so you don't lose them. So yeah, that is that looking at it from like the waterfall approach, how we capture all of this. So we'll try to wrap up with this bit. We're not going to, what was it? We're going to look at solution requirements bit, but not necessarily today. So now I want to look at it. How do we now write requirements in an agile team? What is different? You want to tell me in one word, what is different when we are capturing stakeholders' requirements in an agile approach? Somebody? With just one word, or maybe it is two words that is joined together. The first word is user. So what's the next one?
User story.
User stories. Thank you, Derek. User stories. So, and who knows the framework, how a user story is? All right, so you see, it's still pretty much similar. And like I said, these things is not like, oh, this is how it must be done. You can expand your own more columns, create more information. You can keep it simple and short. But the most important columns is this three. And what you do in an agile, when you say something is a user story. Hello. Yeah, we've got a guest. So when you're capturing your user story, there's a statement format of saying, so rather than just say what we have here, where you say, oh, want online registration form for new candidates and blah, 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 all those other details. We're trying to, like we said, we're trying to like make it a story. Yeah, we're kind of like make it a story and capture important information in it. So I'll give you an example. So I think this was when I was at Shell, for instance, and we have like the product backlog. I'll come back to explain what that means briefly. Some of the things we need to do has been written there and all that, but people end up asking questions. So what are we trying to do with this? Why is this important? And all that. So then I have to sit down with the person who has put that together and say, hey, we are trying to be agile in this team, right? Let's take the format of a user story to provide details on all these things that we've written. So by the time we did that, it became clear. And what you do in your user story is that you use this format that says, for instance, as a customer, I want a registration form so that I can submit my details easily, for instance. Yeah. So within just that one sentence, so instead of just saying, oh, registration form as your requirement, and then people will now start asking, why is it important, blah, blah, blah. The user story format forces you to think of three things at once. And what are those three things? Who wants to tell us? We already know the answer. What are those three things that it forces you to think about when writing your requirements in the form of user stories? You know the drill, guys. We don't move ahead until somebody talks. And the answer does not have to be correct. You just have to say something. We are waiting. We know that we're already in extra time, guys, so please talk. Femi, Solomon, Derek. You guys should at least do some show off in the presence of our guest. I'm still waiting, and you know we are going to wait until he talk. That's the drill. And if we don't talk in 2 minutes, we'll end it here. We'll start next week when you have the answer. Derek, if you are talking, you're on mute because there's a yellow box on your name that sounds like you're talking. What are the 3 things? What are the 3 levels of details that your user stories forces you to think about concerning your requirements?
Wait, sorry, could you say the question again?
Yeah, thank God, at last. What are the 3 things that writing your requirements as user stories forces us to think about? What are the 3 levels of details or the 3 segments or 3 sections that is in every user story?
You have like acceptance criteria.
To an extent, yes. What else? Okay, you've said one. Let somebody else to say something. Just say, guys, you know that you're not looking for the right answer. We just need to get that participation. And more often than not, what you say ends up being correct. Just like the day you guys got what the VMOST technique is all about by yourself, you know? Just like how Solomon got the full meaning of BPM out of the BPMN. So to say, and the interesting thing is that the things you say, you're more likely to remember than the ones you hear. That's why I'm always for being insistent on results saying something. Derek, you asked for the question again, so please give one answer. Just say something, anything. We wasted 4 minutes of waiting, guys.
User story must have a user, I think.
Fantastic. You see, and you, all right, Derek, what else? You're the one that should tell us something else. Oof. Derek.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Just say anything, whatever comes to your mind. Okay.
I think
When you have the answer.
User story should also have like a scope or something like that, I think.
You see, like I said, you guys always get the answers correctly. All right, so 3 things you said: the acceptance criteria, the user, and the scope. So that gives us an insight on our acceptance criteria. As A tells us about the user, I want tells us the scope. Simple, you know? So the 3, I like to say them this way: who, what, and why. Yeah. So who wants it? That's the user. What do they want? That is the scope. Why do they want it? That is like, as I said, to an extent, the acceptance criteria. That gives us, it's pretty much the value, but the value also helps us to get the acceptance criteria, because if that value is not met, then that solution cannot be accepted. Yeah, that's why I say that. So let's get into an example. So let's pick this same example that we had earlier. So the interesting thing is that when we write requirements this way, many times we capture the person that requested for it. But when we write requirements on an agile approach using user stories, we are more focused on the person that will use it. So we are thinking about the user now, not just about the idea of what somebody said from somewhere or something. Yes, we are thinking about the user. So here now, I'm going to say that as a new candidate, so this is the type of the user. Most people will just tell you that user stories, as a user, I want blah, blah, blah. if all you write here on your user story is as a user, please, who is this user you're talking about? Yeah, so this who is telling us something we call persona. So based on whatever solution you're developing, you need to have like the different categories of users that exist there. So those users can be external or internal. Yeah, so you can have like the new candidate, you can have a potential candidate, you can have like current customer or current candidate, however you phrase it. You know, I mean, those of us who have been in this conversation, we know why we're using the word candidate, because the solution we are using as our case study here is a solution of this program that we have here, which is we are trying to improve a program of how people can register for a training and coaching program into business analysis, career path, and all that. So that's why we are using the word candidate, so that some of us will not say, why candidate and not customer? Yeah. So if it's an hospital, for instance, now you will not just be saying as a customer, you tell us who your customer is, as a patient or as a doctor or as a pharmacist. You see, these will be like the different type of users of your solution that you'll be developing in a hospital. So in this case, within our context of our case study, tell us the type of user we are referring to. As a new candidate, I want, let's make it grammatically correct. I want an online, registration form so that I can enroll seamlessly. Make the English easier. Seamless is better than easy. Seamlessly. So you understand now from writing the user story this way, if you put a registration form and people have to consult their grandmother and their grandfather to get some of the details to fill in the form, you know that is no longer a seamless registration. Yeah, because that's not a lot of hurdle, you know. So the whole idea of seamless registration, that has already given us the idea of what is important to this person. And when designing this registration form, we must make sure that it's seamless as possible for these people to put in as well. So this category is, for lack of a better word, depending on where you're working, you can probably just call that features. So because you would have so many user stories, like 500 or so, 500 user stories does not mean your solution is going to have 500 features. Yeah, or you know, so you need some ways of chunking those user stories into features. Yeah, so and that's why there's another activity beyond writing user story that is called story mapping. Story mapping. So this is where we look at different user stories and say, oh, this one fits under this bucket. Oh, this one fits under this bucket. This one fits under this bucket. And we'll be doing that practically, because our assignment for this week will be to go ahead and write user stories. And I like to strike with a large number. You guys need to write your user stories up to like 100. You know, like 100 line by line, 100 lines. Yeah, because you're building a real solution, you need to have that level of detail. Anyway, so yeah.
One question.
Okay.
This user story, will it only be related to, for example, the candidate? Can it not be like for, say, the stakeholder? Say, for example, the admission team, would they not have to be part of this, or is it just for the candidates?
That's a very beautiful question, because even though this new candidate is the one filling the registration form, there is still some efforts on other people internally. So then you can have a user story that is like this, that says, as a admission officer, you know, whatever name we want to call them, or we just call the person admin. As an admin, I want to process, or let's say review.
Delete information from new
I want to
sign-on.
review registration forms so that I can, should I say direct them correctly, or so that I can process registrations. Yeah, so you see they are related user stories, but each of them is addressing the aspect that concerns each of them. which is what the former waterfall approach of capturing requirements does not help you, which you just tell us what you want, but you don't put it into perspective. But in this case now, it puts it into perspective. One person needs the front-end registration form. Another person needs some form of admin view where they can see everybody that has registered. So how we implement this is now different. Some people, they can just say that at the end of the day, all those registration forms, you download it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can review it from there. Some other pool would have like an admin portal where you can view everybody and say accept, accept, reject, reject, or send email, send request for payments, blah, 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 things like that, you know. So it now depends on how we implement, and that's where solution requirements now comes in. Yeah, because at this level, we are still talking about the stakeholders' requirements, not yet how the solution itself would look like or how it would work. Yeah, so that's why you begin to see the difference between stakeholder requirements and solution requirements. Because stakeholder requirements, we don't necessarily interested in how it's going to work. We're just telling you what we want. Yeah, just the what. That's why it's very important that at the level of capturing stakeholder requirements, a big temptation that you need to overcome is try not to get the users to start describing how the solution should work for you. We will want to be able to download the form into a spreadsheet. We want, they don't need to start telling you that, they just need the data. How you present that data to them depends on how you now have the solution conversation. It can be, well, everything is going to go into a database, you need to write SQL queries to download it, or everything will go into Power BI. You know, you can have those solution conversation with the team, with the design team and all that, based on maybe the resources you have available, your technology strategy, your technology stack, and you know, whatever. So I hope you got the drift now, how you can still, so under this now, even though you can say that they fall under registration management, you can call it that. You see? And then you can have another thing that is related to an online registration form where we still go and say, as a new candidate, I want to auto-fill my address with postcode so that my address is easily and correctly captured. You see, to this guy now, he's told you two things that are very essential why he needs this: to easily capture it and to correctly capture it, because not everybody remembers what county they belongs to. And when you want them to fill everything line by line, people begin to mistake their town for their county. But if they just use postcode to automatically fill the address, then they don't need to make that mistake, because it will fill all those things automatically. So there's no mistake, and it's easy as well too. I realize that this is still under registration management as well too, or to just keep it easy, let's just say registration. We don't need to, because that's management thing sometimes can be overused in the tech space. Product management, order management, everything just has management as part of every feature you have in solution most times. You can just keep it simple. It all falls under registration. So somebody else can now say that as a, I don't know how to call this, whether we call them registered candidates or current candidates or something like that. Let's just call them candidates, yeah, for the program. I want to be able to, what should we, I want a courseware. No, courseware is not defining the solution. You see that is a temptation for business analysts to be defining solution when you should be focused on what the person just wants. So what this person really wants here is, I want a, let's say, let's put it, let's call it this way better. A real-time access to course contents so that I can review scope of the program, or so that I can track my progress. There's no right or wrong answer. Yeah, it's dependent on what your conversation is. And one thing that is very important is that as a business analyst, you don't sit down and just write all these requirements from your head. You have conversations with real people to understand what is important to them. It's based on those conversations that you're not able to write all of this. Yeah. So, so feature for this now can now be our courseware, for instance, and you don't write this part of the stuff when you're capturing you don't write that part when you're capturing your user stories at the beginning. This is what you're just capturing. You're writing these three as much as possible. You know that at the point of writing everything, the status for everything is in draft mode anyway. Maybe by the time you've captured as much as possible, you can now try to flesh out with a bit more detailed acceptance criteria for all of them as well. And you can have comments on each of those lines, which, like I said, is where you just pack your thoughts of what to do next based on all those things. So I'm going to stop here tonight. If not, we're going to be here for another 30 minutes so that we focus on this part of users of the user stories. So you guys can go ahead and write user stories. And by the time we have the user stories that we've written, we can then come back and see how we can evolve from the user stories that we've written. So we can now move to the next stage to story mapping. We map the stories, how everything is related. So that way we see all the different features that we have. Then we can move on to the next level where we talk about story point estimation. So story point estimation is when you're now able to look at each of those user stories and say, this is related to this, this is related to this, this is related to this. Story point estimation. Story mapping is when you're saying this is related to this. Story point estimation is where you're saying, this is the score we are giving this item, this is the score we are giving this item. And what does that score mean? It's just trying to say that we're trying to, which one is simple to do, which one is complex, which one is, we'll talk about that in our subsequent session. And two major ways that story point is being estimated is, one is called the Fibonacci sequence, and the other one is called t-shirt sizes, as simple as it is, So Fibonacci sequence is a series of numbers that goes 1, 3, 5, 8, like that, 13, 21. If you are wondering why does that sequence just means that the next number is the sum of the previous two. So 1 plus 2, 3, 2 plus 3, 5, 5 plus 3, 8, 8 plus 5, 13, 13 plus 8, 21. And that's how that numbers goes on and on. So you just look at item and say, oh, this particular user story, we can start and finish it in one day. Let's give it a story point 1. Oh, which other ones are related to this? Oh, we put all those ones as 1. Which one seems a bit more complex than that? Okay, we'll give it a 2. Which one is complex than 2? We give it a 3. Which one is complex than 3? We give it 5. And complexity does not necessarily mean hard to do. Complexity might mean you need more resources, might mean you need more people, might mean you have other dependencies. Let me not rush this story point estimation thing. When we get there and we actually need to do it, our approach here is to learn by doing. So go and write user stories, come. Then in our next session, we do story mapping together. And then we also do story point estimation together. So we get the idea. And t-shirt sizes is just small, medium, large, extra large for each of all those things. And why do we do all this estimation? It's so that we can know how much of what people can do in a sprint. Someone is wondering, hey, wait, what is sprint again? So what we are going to start with in our next session is, I was speaking to a friend of mine who is an agile coach. I'm also an agile coach as well. But let's start getting real feedback. Like someone already says that, Darren, you're already getting tired of hearing your voice. This is like our 4th session or something, isn't it? So let's bring in some fresh voice. So I'll bring in a friend who would take us like 30 minutes or so, give us a crash course on agile to start our next class. So that by the time we start using all those terminologies, we understand where they fit. Sprint, Scrum Master, Product Owner, all those things like that. We understand where it all fits. I could send a recording of the session is done before, but I think it would be good to have a live one. So I'll speak to him. Hopefully he'll be available next week, Thursday, to take it. But if he's not available, maybe I'll end up sending the recording of the session like this that he's taken before as well for that short introduction to Agile. Then we now look at this, review the story point, the user stories you've written. We do the story mapping, then we do the story point estimation. And gradually, guys, we begin to build up from there. We are getting close to building this solution, everyone. So we're not going to bother talking about solution requirements today, because by the time we've gotten the clarity on our stakeholder requirements with user stories, then we can now take that next level depth of how do we now get to the level of solution requirements, which is, this is our user story. This is our acceptance criteria. They will now begin to put some extra information, like which systems are involved in this solution. What is the precondition? What is the post condition? All those extra technical details that you put to your user stories. But don't be afraid. Many times, a lot of business analysts just stop at the stakeholder requirements. They write the user stories for you, and they pass it on to developers to do the development from there. But sometimes they go a bit deeper from the stakeholder requirements to now flesh out a bit more detailed, technical details on the solution requirement specification. So I'm going to stop there. If you have any question, I can take that now. If there are no questions, I've sent the link to our group, guys. So go join that link. Then you can join the Trello board where you can look at the list of all the things that, let's see if it's still open on the back of this. Yeah. So you can see the list of all the things. I will try to make this more colorful so that you get the idea. Change color. So we'll give it this. We'll give it this. Oh yeah, so it looks more fancy. I'll do that for all those items. And that list will keep growing as we realize, oh yeah, we need to cover this as well too. And as you can see, guys, the list is really long. We've talked about business case, we've talked about business process modeling. We're talking about business requirement documents right now with all these requirements conversations we're having. I would take a bit of a dive into work breakdown structure. This is a bit of a project management thing. But like I said, the idea is to be a blend of both BAs and PM as we go on as well. You can see we also have project planning and scheduling here. Like, how does that concern me as a BA? We need to talk about the project budgeting as well. We talk about stakeholder management, RAID log, solution requirement specification should come up here, which is next there. Then use case diagram as well. So after taking this detour to PM, we'll come back to how do you start doing some of all this design work. Use case diagram, use case and scenarios, wireframing, data mapping, data modeling, test case, managing UAT, training facilitation. This kind of like already run down everything like end to end, really, within the project scope. Then when we are done with this list, I would open another list again, which is looking at it in the product scope. So there are some extra nuances that happens if you're a BA working in the product team, different from the BA that works in the project team. So many of the things are repeated, but there are some extra information that I just want to throw into the mix for us to understand as well too. Some other extra stuff around product design, UI, UX that you need to think of as well. You know, other terminologies, product backlog, blah, 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 and things like that. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. And the assignment for this week, as I said, really is for us to write up these user stories. I can see what someone has joined already. I think that's Solomon. Derek and Femi, please join. Mercy, the lady, she could not join the session today because she's not feeling too well. So hopefully she would catch up with us. Thankfully, we recorded a part of today's conversation, so I can maybe share the recording with her. So enjoy your weekend, enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend, and let's keep the conversation going. Please ask questions. Don't wait till next Thursday. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you. All right, bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everyone.
Hello, Derry. I
Yes.
mentioned that the link for the for today's session, if it could be shared, please, so I can go to it again.